I'm going to speak a little bit about the other side of men's health, nutrition, exercise, supplementation. And, I wanted to show this because actually a lot of data on studies, actually on psychological behavior studies that actually have measured where we are in the stages of change. When we're considering changing a habit, as trying to work out, starting to eat better, taking more supplements, going to the doctor, getting blood work done, getting into mind-body techniques. We usually start at pre-contemplation. We're not even aware. We know there is an option. For instance, somebody wants to stop smoking. They know they have to stop smoking, but they're not ready to do so. They go up on the ladder. Contemplation is, they're thinking about it. They're closer and I think nobody in this room is on pre-contemplation. Otherwise, you would not be sitting here. You would be watching TV or having a drink somewhere in a bar. So you guys are not here. Some of you may be in the contemplation stage where you're thinking about making a few changes, and you're almost ready in the preparation stage. You're about to do it. You're finding more and more information. You're doing your research. You're coming to lectures. So probably, if you're not already in maintenance, some of you may actually be here. Some of you may be in preparation stage. Then you take action. And then after the action, you maintain not to lose the benefits. What I see I've done this work for 20 years, and I see people going up the ladder, right? And they go into action, and they lose weight, or they get in shape, or they do something, they start working out, and then they fail here. They fall back again. This is where I think from action to maintenance, the distance, of course, in this picture is the same distance, but it's a longer distance, and a lot of people just fail to maintain their gains and their benefits. So, depending on where you are, you'll know who you are. And we're talking about medications, hormones, testosterone being one of them. Exercise is another medication, and it should be prescribed. I think studies have shown that when doctors prescribe exercise, people tend to adhere to exercise a lot more. Stress reduction, and you New Yorkers, you know about stress. I've been here for a few. I love New York. I completely. I really enjoy the city, but there's a lot of stress in the city. People run you over. I'm from Texas, I'm from Venezuela, where I live in Houston, where we don't walk, we just drive. So we run each other over with the cars, I guess. Nutrition is another part of the wellness thing. So talking a little bit about heart, and we've learned a lot about heart disease in HIV, unfortunately, because it seems like in many studies have shown that we may have an increased risk of heart disease in HIV. So I've done a lot of, I've gone to a lot of meetings because I've been positive for 27 years, and I'm getting older. I'm 52. I have a family history of heart disease and have been on protease inhibitors and all that. So it's been very concerning for us and for everybody that HIV negative and positive. And when you go to the doctor and they check your cholesterol, we know, we have two different types of cholesterol, the LDL, low-density lipoprotein, which is the bad guy that actually plugs up your arteries, and the good cholesterol, the high-density lipoprotein, supposedly the guy that cleans up the junk that this guy does. As we age, HIV positives, negatives, people, and with metabolic disorders, metabolic syndrome, even the diet that we're eating tends to increase the LDL and decrease the good guy, the HDL. So there are many factors that affect the balance here. And people don't know it, but only a fourth of the cholesterol that what we have in our blood comes from food. 3/4 are actually produced in the liver. So people say, well, I'm on a low cholesterol diet. How come I have high cholesterol? A lot of vegetarians have high cholesterol. And people say, well, I'm a vegetarian. I'm clean. I said, let me see your triglycerides. They're probably high. So it's only 1/4 of cholesterol comes from food. A lot of it is produced by and affected by the medications we're taking, because this the HDL picks up a lot of the junk, and it has to be broke down and by the liver. So there's a lot going on, especially if we have liver disease. We're drinking a lot of alcohol, HIV medications, all kinds of medications affect sometimes liver metabolism. So it's not all about eating, low cholesterol foods, but it's also what's happening in your liver. Next one. And just to summarize real quick, what can we do? Well, smoking definitely is number one in all the risk factors. I think if you stop smoking, I forgot, there's like a reduction of 70% reduction in risk factors. Exercising and decreasing your animal fats and sugars. Sugar is becoming a big thing. We used to be, as you well know, we're getting fatter. Ever since we pushed the low-fat diet and concept where the pyramid was pushed where carbohydrates were the majority of our foods, we've tended to get, getting fatter in this country. Although I have to say, I'm from Houston, a lot of people are fat there. We're one of the fattest cities. And in New York, you guys are walking. I hardly see obesity like I see in Texas or Mississippi in the South, because everybody's walking around. I mean, you cannot get away with not walking here. And there are a few, I've been looking at the data on walking, and 10,000 steps will basically make you maintain your weight and you guys are walking more than 10,000 steps in New York usually. And 10,000 steps is 3 miles, by the way. If you put a pedometer, a lot of people put a step counter. I have done that before. In Houston, we average around 1,000. I'm in front of a computer all day and driving or going to the gym on a treadmill trying to pick up the 2,000 more that I needed. But you guys definitely, going just to the subway and everything you do, you have an advantage in this city to take care of the cardiovascular exercise. So the weight management issue, I don't think it's a humongous problem here. Of course, a few people, there are always people overweight everywhere. But I look around and say, this city is definitely on the go. The stress, that's definitely where you guys are probably having more issues here in the city, and maybe even the blood pressure situation. Triglycerides are also fats. They're not LDL, HDL, but they're dissolved fats in the blood that actually, triglycerides are the food of adipocytes, of fat cells. We all have fat cells that may be shrinking or expanding. And the more triglycerides we have, the more food we have for those fat cells. And triglycerides are really increased by sugar intake, anything, especially when we eat simple carbohydrates that have no fiber. People think, well, I'm going to eat a multi-fiber slice of bread, and that's good, right? I say, no, put some peanut butter in it, because actually the fat, I'm going to speak about that, the fat actually decreases the absorption of that carbohydrate into our bloodstream, which is really linked to triglycerides. And we have a big problem in HIV with high triglycerides due to protease inhibitors. But fish oils, lowering your sugar intake and exercising decreases triglycerides. The HDL, the good guy, that is a little harder. Increasing the good cholesterol, and in HIV, for instance, myself, that's been my challenge, because we have low HDL in HIV. There are many theories, and one of them is that probably the virus actually uses up some of the HDL. Nobody has really explained it. But exercising increases it by 10% or so. Losing weight increases it a little bit more. But a lot of us don't have enough of an increase, even by changing all kinds of lifestyle things. But niacin it can be prescribed at Niaspan. Some of us get a lot of flushing. It works extremely well to increase HDL. So it's an over-the-counter supplement. But the flushing can be managed somehow. I've tried, and sometimes I'm lucky, and sometimes I get flushing worse than the one you brought. Sometimes I don't know if it's testosterone or Niaspan, but it is an effective, and one of those supplements that doctors really embrace. Soluble fiber, eating fiber decreases the absorption of carbohydrates into the blood, and it tends to be better for insulin levels. If everything fails, some people, do all of this and still have an issue with cholesterol. Of course, they're prescription drugs. A baby aspirin a day, some studies show that 81 milligrams is a tiny amount. You don't want to take any more, because internal bleeding can be an issue, can minimize, especially for those that have had a heart attack already, may be a good thing. And if you have low testosterone or thyroid hormones, you could also have a higher incidence. There's actually good data on that, on heart disease. So just regular. I really like this graph. I'm going to try to make it as simple as I can. And the concern is this is blood sugar levels, and this is where somebody is diagnosed with diabetes. Of course, fasting blood sugar goes up right here. So the fasting blood sugar, FBG, 70 to 100, that's normal. And when you are having increases of over 125 when we're in the diabetes phase. But a lot of us may be in this pre-diabetes stage, and we don't know it. you know, and as I said, a lot of the information I've gotten is driven the fact that I'm positive, HIV positive, because a lot of us have insulin resistance, and we may be in this stage, which is not a good place to be. It's a good place to be here when we're young, we're exercising, we don't have weight issues, we're eating. Sometimes no matter what we ate back then, didn't really make a difference. We basically have normal blood sugar levels, insulin levels were normal too. And then insulin, we start having an increase in insulin, meaning insulin is less and less effective in keeping blood sugar in check, because insulin is a hormone produced by pancreas to do so. So we're starting to have a resistance. Insulin cannot grab onto the sugar, bring it to the muscle for storage as glycogen. And this thing called insulin resistance increases. As we fatigue the pancreas, this keeps going on for years and years, we basically break through and we become either a type 2 diabetic person. So most people don't know they're here because, you know, you may be here and your doctor is saying, well, your blood sugar is fine. Or you may be here and says, well, better be careful, you exercise and eat better. But the fact that we're prone to basically shift in that way is very concerning. How do we shift ourselves to this area here? You know, keeping healthy weight, exercising, you guys at least are walking here. I'm going to talk a little bit about this thing called the low glycemic load diet. We used to call it index. We're calling it load now. Certain supplements and medications can decrease insulin resistance and improve this curve from here to here. So next one. A little bit on fat. There's two types of fat, the subcutaneous fat. We lose that in HIV. We used to with the old drugs, D4T and ACT. We had like lipoatrophy is one of the problems that people had back in the days when we were taking those drugs, and we had facial wasting and became very lean. However, visceral fat is the deep tissue here, the fat that surrounds the organs. It's really another organ, like Dr. Oliveri was saying. Visceral fat starts emitting hormones too, and it starts feeding onto the metabolic disorder. It's actually the fat that is correlated to mortality and cardiovascular disease and all that. So it's the deeper fat, the fat that you cannot get to by liposuction, for instance, and the fat that is really a lot harder to lose than the fat that you can actually pinch. And we've gotten a lot of data, believe it or not, from HIV also because of this lipodystrophy problem that we've had, the belly issue that we had in HIV related to protease inhibitors. Nobody has really blamed anybody in HIV, that's the thing. There are many theories, and I'm not going to get into that because this is not really an HIV talk, although I keep going back to HIV, because it's where I learned a lot of this. But there's some good data, not in general, in the general population of keeping, I'm going to talk a little bit about Mediterranean diet with olive oil, nuts, fish, vegetables. They're not really heavy into beef, and they do eat lamb once in a while. But the Mediterranean diet has actually shown decreases in cholesterol, triglycerides, and body weight compared to a regular American low-fat diet. Exercise definitely has been shown cardiovascular resistance to increase visceral fat. And so you guys definitely get the cardio here. The only challenge for New Yorkers is to get the resistance training machines, and especially after walking all day. I've been here for 3 days. I've only worked out today because I'm tired all the time walking. So it's to save some energy for the actual weight training that increases your lean body mass. There's some data on metformin. It's an anti-diabetes drug that works in certain studies have shown that decrease visceral fat, but because it actually decreases fat in general and appetite, some people get diarrhea. Is that why we're getting fat reduction? We don't know. Testosterone gel is actually being studied for fat. In HIV, we had a study where men were applying androgel to their belly, and they were followed for 52 weeks. And at week 26 or so, they had lost 1 inch of waist circumference. But when they looked deep inside with a CT scanner, they found out that the fat loss was fat under the skin. It was not the visceral fat that is more concerning metabolically. So, the patients were happy, but yet the researchers deemed the study a failure because they were looking at reductions in visceral fat. I think 1 inch of waist circumference loss is good in my book, but yet, as I said, it was mostly fat under the skin. So testosterone does not seem gel replacement, at least in this study, to decrease visceral fat. Anabolic steroids used for bodybuilding purposes or for wasting syndrome in HIV. Some data on oxandrine is an oral that you take every day. There's one small study that shows that it may decrease visceral fat. We don't have any data on nandrolone, decadurabolin, which is another one used in HIV. But it's not really what I would think. Although oxandrine is well known for being a cutting agent that reduces fat under the skin, that it does very well. Human growth hormone, good data. It actually burns both subcutaneous and visceral fat. It is extremely expensive. Injections every day. Most insurance companies are not going to pay for as a weight loss product. It's actually approved for pediatrics for growth, children that have stunt growth, or for AIDS wasting. And most people with HIV are not wasting anymore. But many doctors are prescribing it at a low dose after doing a test to see if you had deficiency in growth hormone. There's some data there, but as I said, and there's side effects like joint pains and water retention. This is a new product actually in HIV, and as I said, I was not going to make this about HIV, but we have a lot of data on fat and HIV. We've been obsessed about fat in HIV for 15 years. So we have a lot of data on subcutaneous fat and visceral fat, and that's where I think the general population can learn a lot from us. This drug called tesamorelin, or Egrifta is a brand name. It was just approved recently, and very expensive, $2,000 a month, daily injections under the skin. It decreases fat, visceral fat, by 18%. After 26 weeks, you have to inject it every day for the rest of your life. When you stop, things turn back to what they used to be. So I'm not too crazy about it, but if your insurance pays for it and you're willing to inject every day, and there are 3 vials every day that you have to mix in, that's an option. And so far we haven't seen any huge side effects when it comes to blood sugar. That was one of the big problems with growth hormone, or joint aches. But it's an option. And as I said, if you're lucky enough to have an insurance company that will say yes to a $2,000 a month drug, then more power to you. And there's also another hormone called sermorelin, which is compounded, very much like Egrifta, but $260 a month. People pay cash, and it's made by compounding pharmacies. Very few doctors know about it, but a lot of people are using. It's a growth hormone releasing hormone. Surgery, liposuction, or visceral fat is almost very impossible to do because you have to go through the organ area, so it's very risky and not being really looked at. Next one. And how to increase lean body mass. Dr. Oliveri stole my picture of that lean guy. He said, what's wrong with him? Well, wrong with him is that I hate him because nobody can get that lean. When we get older, we cannot get that lean unless you're taking D4T and ACT combined for HIV, and then you develop all the things like facial wasting and buttock. You lose your butt too. So don't get me started because it's being that lean. I think I've been looking at data, there's like the healthy, you cannot go below like 5.5% or so on body fat because actually it's not good for you. So being too lean is actually may not be the best thing either. But I think we are obsessed with this fat thing. I think visceral fat, there's actually enough data to say, okay, we should be concerned about that. I'm not really 100% sure whether subcutaneous fat is such an alarming thing to be after. So we can, the higher protein diets, I think it's a myth. There's some data that shows, people that tend to eat more protein tend to probably, if they're exercising, may actually increase lean body mass in a higher, but those are not really working out. The homeostasis is this thing where the body goes into balance, and overcome. So I'm very concerned when you have, especially kidney disease. So I think it's, to be honest with you, it's a big thing in the bodybuilding world, but it is important to eat protein. Protein is a building block of lean body mass. And there are many ways to eat healthy proteins. Resistance exercise with machines and weights is the only way to increase lean body mass with exercise. Cardiovascular exercise like walking, running, unfortunately, it's only good for cardiovascular health and even fat loss, but not for muscle tissue. Testosterone replacement, yes, if you have low testosterone and you start replacing with testosterone, your lean body mass is going to go up. I haven't really looked at the data because different studies have done, mostly in older men. The average age is like 55 to 65, but I haven't seen any real good data on, except HIV, on younger men. But there's definitely an increase, especially if you're working out. There's actually a study that shows that for people that are not exercising, it's still their lean body mass went up. Growth hormone replacement, if you have low growth hormone, it's kind of debatable. The anti-aging clinics are very heavy into that. They're trying to shut them down in many ways, the FDA and medical associations are against this use of low dose growth hormone. I'm not going to get into the politics of it. I think if somebody has growth hormone deficiency and want to use low growth hormone and want to pay out of pocket, then more power to them. But it's not something that the average Joe has access or money for, because the insurance companies don't pay for that. Medical use of oxandrolone or nandrolone, two anabolic agents for people that have wasting diseases or unintentional weight loss. Oxandrolone is not approved for HIV-specific weight loss. It's for anybody that has unintentional weight loss due to illness, and it's a long indication. So even your grandmother, if she has illness, or although there's very little data on cancer and oxandrolone. So not really an option for HIV negatives per se, unless you have a medical condition. Creatine supplementation. Creatine is definitely shown to increase body cell mass, mostly water flowing to the cells. And for those that have normal kidney function, it's not a bad thing. It's actually, I do it, I've seen the data, lots and lots of studies. It's not really one of those supplements that people just making claims without good data. There's actually a study in HIV that showed increases in lean body mass also. And healthy sleep habits, because their data shows that when we're not sleeping well, we tend to not produce enough growth hormone during the sleep cycle, and actually we produce more cortisol too. Next one. And when it comes to supplements, it's the most confusing. I answer a column on thebody.com on supplements, and even though I'm not an expert on this subject, because there's so much controversy on everything, and one day you hear a study that is something that's good for you, then like calcium, for instance, and then 6 months later, another study comes up and says that it may not be. And the supplement industry, I'm going to say this on video, a bunch of them are crooks. They're not regulated by the FDA, and a lot of them are taking advantage of people. There are several companies I trust because they do quality control. There's actually a website called consumerlabs.com. It's a company that tests supplements. You have to pay a subscription, and they actually test the supplements to see if they have what they have. And 30% of them flunk. So I know which brands are actually not having what they promise. So there's a lot of abuse in this supplement industry. There's a lot of claims that are being made without strong data. And there are a lot of companies, pharmaceutical companies, are taking over the supplement industry too. So we're seeing a very big change in how pharmaceuticals are perceiving supplements. So I'm going to only speak about supplements that we have some evidence, even if it's a pilot study, that shows that they may actually do something for you and not just waste your money or screw up your liver or screw up your kidneys, which are two of my other concerns. Especially in HIV, we take so many medications. I take 4 HIV meds that have some issues on the liver. Niacin, I mentioned that before. It actually increases HDL, good cholesterol. It can flush your skin. You feel like you're burning for 20 minutes. It's not pleasant. You get really hot, but sometimes aspirin improves it, or people do other things like eating high-fat diets. I'm not 100% sure. Selenium, there's some good evidence of selenium for those that have deficiency, tend to improve glutathione production. By the way, before I continue, because I'm going to forget, George, raise your hand, George Carter. He's actually your New York expert on supplements. George runs the New York Buyers Club. And I'm glad I remember, because I was going to forget. I don't know if you guys know, but back in the days, when we were crazy, dying of AIDS, we were doing crazy things. Some of us were importing stuff from Mexico and Europe, and a lot of us formed buyers clubs in different cities. so that we can organize ourselves and import stuff or go to Mexico and bring them. And the New York Buyers Club was one of them, Houston Buyers Club, there are two in California, and we did crazy stuff back then, and we had to because we were desperate. But as time went by, a lot of them shut down. The New York Times, you guys and Houston are still open, and what they do is they provide supplements at a really reduced rate, cost, and they have been doing it for so many years. They actually only recommend things that they've really had data behind them. And George is a leader, basically nationally. Yeah, so what I'm trying to say is support your Buyers Club. I mean, I tell people, you walk around here and you see a GNC, you walk in, they don't, most of those people are just, minimum wage. They don't know, they haven't been trained on, most of them don't even have a degree. I'm not saying, I'm not putting them down. It's just that they don't have the knowledge. And go to, and if after the lecture, talk to George, because they do have a place here in New York and they have a lot of handouts and booklets, and they're very medical, and George is definitely somebody to support. Calcium carbonate for bone protection, there's some now, and for diarrhea control in HIV, there's some data that may show, we're still arguing whether long-term calcium carbonate supplementation may increase cardiovascular risk in women. But vitamin D is the hottest vitamin in research right now. In my conferences that I go to in HIV, we're spending almost a day talking about vitamin D. Back in the days, you couldn't even talk about vitamins in any conference. The people would remember George. It was like, shut up. Now, researchers, but I'm concerned about vitamin D. Vitamin D is a vitamin that we actually, our bodies make through exposure of sunlight. Of course, a lot of us are avoiding the sun due to obvious reasons like skin cancer and aging and wrinkles. So we're not getting enough exposure of sun, and also people that have higher pigmentation, Latinos and African Americans are not getting enough of that UV light. And vitamin D is good evidence that increases bone strength and density. But there are a lot of claims that are being made right now, and I see them every week. People with low vitamin D get more cancer. People with low vitamin D get more diabetes. People with vitamin D are having more heart attacks. But we have very little data on what happens when you give people vitamin D and follow them for all of those illnesses. So there's actually a study, they're starting a long-term study for that. So, because I'm concerned, they're measuring vitamin D on people right now and they're linking it to everything. But my question is, well, are people that have cancer or diabetes or whatever, metabolic syndrome, are they not getting out and walking out under the sun? Are they staying home more because they're more tired, they're more sick? So I'm skeptical of becoming, but I do take my vitamin D every day because I think it's something that doesn't hurt you. It may actually help you. There's some immune benefits too that we're seeing with vitamin D. So it's cheap, it's not gonna break your bank, and you're not gonna overdose on it. So there you go. So SAMI, this is a very interesting supplement that very few people know. And I know it because I've definitely had bouts of depression in the past. I have a very strong family history of drama in my Latino blood, I guess. And a lot of it in my family, it really runs, it's very strong, the genetic influence of depression. So I've always looked for things that are non-pharmaceutical. I'm not a friend of SSRIs because of the sexual dysfunction issues. And there's actually a study that was done here in New York City. It's an antioxidant that is the precursor of glutathione, like selenium is, that actually improves energy, improves mood. There's some data on arthritic pain, and liver toxicity detox. So we have very little data. We have a pilot study done at a CREA here in New York that showed that it was as effective or more than antidepressants. However, there's a warning that if you have had any manic episodes in the past, or if you are in recovery and had if you're diagnosed with bipolar disorder, you should not take it because you may go into manic episodes. But it works. I mean, it works right away too. You don't have to wait for 2 weeks. People say, "Are you selling this stuff?" I said, "No, I'm not selling it. It's actually over the counter. It's not cheap, but it's over the counter." Whey protein, it's the bodybuilding shakes. Some data shows that whey protein actually increases lean body mass in bodybuilders. I'm not 100% sure. I don't take it. I'm actually intolerant to all whey, lactose-free or not. have horrible problems. In HIV, we studied it, and what we did a placebo. I was actually part of the study team. We did a placebo-controlled study. We gave people a placebo, which was basically carbohydrates, and a whey protein product, and we followed them with DEXA scans, no exercise, and we did not see a difference in lean body mass. Why? Because the people that were having the whey protein supplements tended to decrease their caloric intake. They would eat less. This was not a supplement, this was a replacement in their days. So their total calories were basically the same. So we saw no difference in lean body mass. But what we saw was a trend towards increases in CD4 cells. So there's an immune benefit of whey protein, and there's some good data, non-HIV data, and may have an immune benefit, but there was not a statistical significant difference. Creatine, we have enough data to show that that's have some improvements in strength and lean body mass. However, if you have kidney issues, you definitely have to talk to your doctor because it may actually load up your kidneys. Omega-3 is another hot supplement. Most doctors are embracing it. There's actually a prescription grade for lowering triglycerides, mostly, not cholesterol, triglycerides. There may be some anti-inflammatory properties. Carnitine, there's not enough data, as much data as I want it to be, because this is the supplement that I will never, ever stop taking, because when I do, I feel the difference. I've been taking it for 15 years at 3,000 milligrams. It gives me energy and clarity of mind. It protects the mitochondria. Some mitochondria is little factories of energy, the energy factories in our cells. And mitochondria get depleted, the DNA, as we age and also as we take medication. So it has been proven in one study in HIV that increases energy levels. However, there's not like strong evidence that, and there's some lipid control maybe, but it's the only one that when I stop taking it because I forget to buy it, I feel a huge difference in my mind and energy levels. B vitamin in general are important for many metabolic processes. And for those of you people ask me, well, who do you trust? I have my biases. There's Gero, there's Super Nutrition, but this website, I think you pay $20 a year. And this is, by the way, you're going to download the slides when you go to the website, so don't worry about writing it down. But actually, every single thing that I've talked about and more, they have an analysis of all the companies, all the benefits, all the studies with the references. Very good for doctors too. Really good lab, although you have some issues with that in Georgia, I see, but it's the only place where we can actually find some information about who's lying to us and who's not when it comes to ingredients, and you will be amazed, yes. I'm going to wrap it up real quick with food and exercise, and then have you at least see whatever is left there. But you know, what you see here is mostly color, right? I tell people when you buy your vegetables, try to get one of each color. I mean, colors mean different antioxidant profiles. Grains, salmon. Most of us don't eat enough fish. I'm one of them. I have to try really hard. You know, omega-3 fatty acids are, although, you know, some people say, well, how about fish that has mercury? Although heavy metals are not as critical in older people as they are in kids or pregnant women, but there's an issue there. Where's your fish coming from? Lean meats, fruits and vegetables of all colors. Next one. And you know, I can tell people a rule of thumb, half of your plate should be vegetables, high fiber, colorful vegetables, dark green, broccoli, cauliflower, and all the others. The quarter should be carbohydrates are, I'm going to talk about glycemic load, that have fiber. Carbohydrates with fibers are good for you. Carbohydrates without fiber are where we have problems. So like the white rice, they remove the good stuff. You know, white potatoes tend to have less fiber than sweet potatoes, believe it or not, even though sweet potatoes taste sweet. So, you know, bread, white breads tend to be really, the worst thing you can do is eat white bread, because all the fiber has been removed and the carbohydrate gets absorbed really fast in your bloodstream and your insulin spikes, and that's when we shift into that pre-diabetes phase. And protein, lean protein of all kinds. And let's talk a little bit about the good carbs and bad carbs. And I should call them fast absorbing carbs and slow absorbing carbs. Now, I think there's a new trendy term now being called the slow carb diets. No low carb, slow carb diets. And I think that's a good term. I like that term. I've seen it in different books. Because this is the bad carbs, so the fast carbs. They get absorbed really fast in the bloodstream. Sugar, white potato, pancakes, sweets in general. And what they do is when you eat, you have a high insulin spike, high blood sugar spike, and that, it comes down eventually back to normal. But if you keep doing this year after year after year, that's when you run into this insulin resistance where the pancreas is exhausted and we get into that pre-diabetes and diabetes phase. The slow carb carbohydrates with higher fiber vegetables, I tell people don't drink the fruit juices. Eat the fruit. When you are drinking a fruit juice, you're basically removing all the fiber, which is the best part. So people say, well, what do you think of juicing? I say, I hate juicing. I think juicing is a stupid thing. What's his name? The guy that just died. He was a big juicer. Yes, you do have a lot of the vitamins and antioxidants from the juice that you're consuming, but you're basically removing the fiber that slows down the absorption of that glucose, that sugar in the screen. So try to avoid fruit juices, sodas, eat more vegetables. If you're going to eat bread, if you have to, multi-grain bread with a lot of fiber, at least 10 grams per slice. We don't eat enough fiber, and fiber actually is very important for digestive health and for metabolic, for insulin response. Yeah, next one. And I don't know if you remember the pyramid that were pushed when we were kids. I used to have arguments 20 years ago with dietitians because we would say that for HIV it was horrible to eat these horrible amounts of carbohydrates that we're pushing because we in HIV are sensitive to carbohydrates. We have a lot of metabolic issues, glucose intolerance. We don't metabolize carbohydrates as well as healthy people. And we're pushing all these breads and pastas, and actually the carbohydrates were down here in the bigger section of the day. And this is the Atkins diet, which it's got followers, but it's got people that are against it, and for many reasons, where he pushed proteins of all kinds. Doesn't matter if you have fat or not, eggs and cheeses, nuts, a little bit of vegetables, oils, and a little bit of fruit. And yeah, people lose fat and weight out really fast. But they tend to have other issues with fatigue, water loss is pretty bad breath, the ketones come out on your breath. It's very hard for people to stick to this diet for long-term periods of time. People lose fat and weight very fast, however, they tend to stay off the diet after a few months. The zone or the South Beach diet, I think it's being a more accepted approach now. It's becoming more and more popular, in which vegetables, high fiber, nutritious vegetables are in the base with some meats, fish and lean meats, avocado, nuts, fruits of all colors, olive oil. This is more Mediterranean, a Mediterranean diet, and grains on the top. You don't see like white breads and sugars. So this is, and the South Beach diet is actually a good book to buy if you need. But you guys, what I see in New York City, you guys have a lot of advantages because you have all these delis that you have everywhere. In every 2 blocks, there's a deli, and you can actually pick the food, although that can get expensive after a while. But there's food being made in the city in every block, something we don't have back where I'm from, where you can have some saying on what you pick, even if you don't cook. Because in Houston, you either cook or go to McDonald's or screw yourself that way. So tend to choose the different colors, lean meats, some nuts and avocados, olive oil, and garbanzo beans, and slow carbs. And this actually is a study, very well done study, that showed that the Mediterranean diet, people lost a lot more. Actually, this is low-fat Mediterranean diet. The low-fat diet, this is the weight, and these are months. The low-fat diet, which is a high-carb diet. The middle one is the Mediterranean diet, which, actually the people lost a lot more weight. And this last one is the low-carbohydrate diet, which is mostly the Atkins diet. So yes, on the Atkins diet, you lose a lot more weight, and you keep it off too, but the adherence, long-term, is very difficult to attain. So Mediterranean diet is almost as good anyways long-term. So do not skip breakfast, I say to people, because people, actually study that shows that people who skip breakfast tend to be fatter, because you compensate later during the day. You don't have enough energy. Shop around the perimeter of the store where the healthy stuff is. Try to avoid the can and the cereals. Cereals are the worst thing. If you read the labels, even Cheerios, people say, oh, Cheerios have fiber. And the ad on the TV says so. Well, read it. High fructose corn syrup, corn, very high. Don't eat cereal in the morning. That's the worst thing you can do. Or a bagel, for that matter. You may as well eat cake. Eggs, grains, cottage cheese, multigrain breads, yogurt, nuts, But it's hard. It's hard to be, especially for fast-paced New Yorkers, to eat well. But the breakfast is a very important meal. Eating small meals during the day is probably better for your insulin levels, although when we get so busy, who's going to be able to do this? Almonds, walnuts, pecans, pistachios, that's what I have usually as a snack, because actually they're good fats that are good for cholesterol. Fruits and vegetables. Avoid sweet drinks, especially fruit juices. People say, how about Diet Coke or diet drinks? You're not exposing your body to the sugar, but you are training your body, your brain, to be addicted to sweets. So in a way, it's a catch-22. You're decreasing your sugar intake, but longer-term effects is that you're training yourself to crave sweets. So you'll be migrating towards sweets anyways, even if you have Diet Coke or Diet. A slow cooker, I think, is the best invention in the whole world. Before you go to work, you leave this thing and you come back, and I do that a lot. And I cook once a week and freeze and reheat. That's probably better. Hydrogenated oils are the ones that are bad for you. They're trans fatty acids. Read the labels. Omega-3s are good. Olive oil is good. Avocados. This guy's becoming more and more. I think some people are still arguing whether or not it's the main reason why we're fatter in the United States, besides the fact that we don't exercise. But there's some good evidence that high fructose corn syrup, ever since it was introduced in this country, to replace sugar, the obesity rates have gone up, skyrocketing. So I think we're going to see this, more and more of this. In 10 years, we may have companies being sued like the tobacco companies. I really think that's coming, because we're going to see more and more evidence that fructose is not really what you should be eating. And there's a whole of information on the internet. Protein, let's move on, because their best proteins, you can read this later when you download, but lean beef, dairy proteins, yogurt, if you can, make sure that it's good yogurt, Greek yogurt, not the Latin full of sugar yogurt that you buy at the store. Beans, as long as you mix them with rice, if you're a vegetarian, almond butter, chicken, beef, etc. Next one. And as I said, they're good carbs and bad carbs, good, more fiber, nutrients, whole grains, vegetables, and fruits. Try to avoid the refined flours and white breads. You have a note? And actually, you need fat. I mean, people forget that fat, hormones come from cholesterol. Hormones come from fat, from actual cholesterol. So being on a really low-fat diet is really not the healthiest you can have. Next one. And you'll see it later when you download it. There's people say, "Well, tell me what to buy, Nelson. You talk so much and yet don't tell." So I basically listed what a healthy grocery shopping list should be. And I'm not going to go through all of them because I'll bore you. But when it comes to exercise, very briefly, if there was a pill, next one, that had all these benefits, I think it would sell more than Viagra or Lipitor, which are probably the two #1 drugs in this country, right? But exercise, and I'm talking about both cardiovascular and resistance, decreases abdominal and total body fat, improves the way insulin works, so we prevent that type 2 diabetes, improves the way sugar is metabolized, increases HDL, the good cholesterol, decreases the bad guys, the bad cholesterol, increases muscle mass, improves strength and energy, bone density improves too, and in mood. And there's actually studies that sexual function is improved too with exercise. And there are two types. You guys get a lot of this in New York City. I mean, you walk and you go everywhere. So I'm not too concerned about most of you are actually, whether you like it or not, you have to walk everywhere you go, and that's a good thing. I wish we had that in Houston, but we only have one metro line, and they're trying to block everything else, all the other lines, because rich people don't want their lines to go through their neighborhood. So it's been, but now we have a lesbian mayor, so she's fighting really hard. So we'll see what happens there, but we only have one line, and it's popular. Everybody's using the subway there. Yeah, and they're big oil, there you go. But it's gonna happen, we're not that backwards, So I don't even have to, I'm not gonna speak about this, because you guys already do it. I mean, he's preaching to the choir. When it comes to resistance, yes, and people say, well, Nelson, I walk, I work, I'm always on my feet. Why do I have to go to the gym? I'm too tired. It's because, resistance exercise is really what makes your lean body mass grow and stay, and we need lean body mass as we age. People forget that most people, I don't know if you see what your grandparents, they start losing height, they start bending, and that's bone density. They start losing bone density, so their spine starts bending. Their legs, most people are having, they drag their legs and their feet. So two things I tell people: exercise, weight training will keep your bones strong and will keep your legs strong. I tell people the most important body part in our bodies are our legs, because it's what's going to make us independent as we grow older. You could be very strong here, and a lot of guys at the gym are working out their chests, because that's what shows, right? And therefore getting their legs. Legs is really what's going to get you through your old age, so that you don't have somebody, you don't have to hold on to somebody who have a cane. So don't forget your legs, because your legs are functional capacity in aging is directly correlated to leg strength. So when you go to the gym, do your legs first, because actually it takes more energy to do legs than anything else. And that's why I called, I think here, warm up. Do 8 to 12 reps. I tell, if you're doing more than 12 repetitions, let's say you're starting with a bicep curl, that weight is too low for you, too light for you. And the research has shown that anywhere from 8 to 10 reps at maximum failure, meaning at the 11th you can barely finish it, that's your weight. Whatever that is, could be 1 pound for you, for somebody else next to you, could be 50 pounds, doesn't really matter. And of course, as strength goes up, your weight setting will be different. But if you're doing more than 12, you're basically doing cardiovascular. You're leaning out maybe, but you're not doing weight resistance training to increase lean body mass. 1 body part per week, there's some studies that show that not very strong data. You have to let muscles rest for growth. Sometimes I do full body exercises 3 times a week, depending on how I feel or if I'm traveling. But it's not good to be working out the same muscle group too frequently, because you need to let it rest. 1 hour sessions, 3 to 4 times a week. I tell people if you're spending more than 1 hour at the gym, you're either cruising too much, wasting too much time, or talking too much, because I see people just like, I want to get in and out. And really, data have shown that anything above 1 hour, when you're actually working out the way you're supposed to, increases cortisol levels and muscle breakdown. So you get to a point where you're building muscle, but if you keep doing it, you're overtraining, and that actually is counterproductive. 3 sets per body part, if you really want to be effective. If no access to a gym, there are different home-based exercises I have on the website that you can do. And we're almost done. Safety first. The thing I see the most, and I've been working out for years, and I've had 3 back surgeries, have nothing to do with working out. It's a congenital problem that I've had, is that most people that start going to the gym, they get really into it. Most people, I would say more than 50% for sure, stop within 3 months, 4 months. They don't go back. It's either life gets too complicated, or they get busy, or something happened, or they got a cold or a flu and they didn't go back. So that's where I see the most problems. For 20 years I've been lecturing, and people are really gung-ho. They start at the beginning of the year. By March, you see it at the gym. January, you can hardly find a machine to work it. By March, April, you can pick any machines, or the parking lot in my gym is packed in January. By March, you find. Why? Because people tend to drop off. We tend to always want quick benefits right away. And most studies show that we need at least 12 to 16 weeks of doing the same thing for a 5% change to happen. So I tell people, if you're really looking for fast results in exercising, your first 3 months are critical, because it's that's really actually the slower part of the recovery. So warm-ups, I do tell people warm up the body part before you do it by just doing a lighter set, and do not overtrain. Don't do anything that hurts. Major muscle groups first. Like doing squats or bench presses. When you do a major muscle group like legs, you're using a lot more energy. So we tend to leave it for the end. The fact is, you should put it up front when you start working out, when you have the most energy. And compound exercises. Where is a compound exercise? Compound exercise, like, for instance, bench press. A bench press works out your chest, your shoulders, and your arms. It's compounding. It actually works out all this area. Instead of a bicep curl, that's an isolating exercise, only works out this muscle. So starting with compounding exercises, which is squats and bench presses, it's a lot more effective. You're using the energy up front, and that's where you're working out the most body parts. Full range of motion. I see people going at the gym or squatting like this. Oh yeah, they have like 1,000 pounds there, but they're very strong, but they're not going all the full motion, right? Or they're working out like this. I wish there was a exercise police that would go around the gym, but if you dare telling them anything, oh my God, they'll cut your head off. So I'm just like, oh my God. Or you see them like they're going to injure themselves, and you're like, oh my God, I need to tell them something. They go up on the shoulder raises. But anyways, I'm not going to get into the politics or the mismanners rules of gym etiquette. Heavier sets, warm-up sets, and you increase as strength increases. These are my two most favorite exercise websites. You're going to be able to download it from. The first one has videos and no ads, no commercial stuff, which is the most beautiful part of this video. You click on a muscle group and a few videos come up. This has commercial stuff, but it's pretty cool too, from Canada. An iPod, you can download a lot of free exercise videos from Men's Health. Final words. We don't have to accept aging and sexual dysfunction and many of the things that we just accept because we're getting older. There are many things we can do to change that. The sexual dysfunction issue, it's something that, I tell people, having more sex is great, but it could be a problem for some of us. It can be obsessive compulsive. If we're doing it with somebody we love, it'll be even better. But keeping balance. Just wanting sex for the sake of sex is probably not the best thing, although I'm not here to moralize. But not having sex when you want to, or having a partner that you cannot satisfy because you're tired or you have no sex drive, can affect your relationship. I mean, it's not all about sex after a few years. I've been with mine for 15 years, and God knows it's not all about sex. But it is an important thing for intimacy and connection. Finding out your hormone levels, talk to your doctor. There's one of the best doctors in New York here. We have also another doctor here, Dr. Gary Blick. Say hi to people, just from Connecticut. So another one, Dr. Blick has been a great supporter since the beginning of my crazy work. I started working back in the days on wasting and anabolic steroids, and people thought I was gonna kill everybody, and a few doctors actually got the importance of that, and Dr. Blick definitely, Dr. Oliveri, I'm very honored to have them both here. Next one, and we're done, and you can eat. Do not be careful with supplements. Do not believe everything you hear. I get easily 3 emails a day on the body. Nelson, what do you think about this supplement? Does it have any interactions with HIV medications? I said, we don't know. Most pharmaceutical companies are not going to spend the money on interaction studies, meaning, does the supplement bring medication levels up or down? We're never going to know. You're going to take a risk. Yes, there's supplements I take. I take a few supplements, but be sure that you consult. I'm plugging you guys here, New York Bikes Club. The lean body mass loss and increased fat through exercise, it's definitely important to manage. The diet thing I talked to you about, definitely something we're in control. These are things we're in control over. We don't have to go to a doctor to get all this. I'm sorry for the doctors here, but and an informed man helps his doctor giving the best care. That's what I say. It's been a few studies have shown, and I'm not going to be speaking for the doctors here, but the more informed a patient is, the better the doctor can help them. The same doctor can treat two patients very differently. One patient that has no knowledge, basically says yes to everything, doesn't ask questions, versus somebody else that has done some reading, although now with the internet, it can get on your nerves, I'm sure, for people coming with your printouts about what do you think about this when you only have 3 minutes to get paid for. So, but it's important to be informed, and you guys are here, so definitely you're not sitting on your butts. Next one, and that's it. My book, I have 30 books back there. There's also available on Amazon, my email. You're gonna have all this if you go to the testosteronewisdom.com. You can download the slides for print out. The Virus Club. There's another website that I work for that is they're very progressive too. It's a bodybuilding website, so it could get a little controversial sometimes. But well, thank you very much. If you have any questions,